think you should get it.
30 seconds.
So the PM, I'm so urgent, you know, and it's just not like here. So I don't want to do, so just go in, y'all.
That's not a small amount of money.
Right, it's good to me.
You get that up there.
Oh, my note here.
Welcome to Lethal Sales Live for the weekly podcast for car people who play to WIN. Nope.
This is Ian and Larry's there. We were talking a little bit earlier about Led Zeppelin supposedly doing another tour, with the exception, obviously, of John Bonham because he's dead. But it's supposedly they're doing a tour.
That would be incorrect.
Hmm?
That is a phony rumor.
It's a phony rumor. I was told that that was going on. That's what I was told.
Whoever told you that told you incorrectly. Robert Plant has no desire to reform Led Zeppelin.
Oh, okay.
That's the flying on. That's why they didn't get back together years ago.
Let's just set the record straight as we begin this tonight's show, okay?
So Larry's heard it from another source that's not happening.
I don't believe they are either.
Oh, okay, interesting. Well,
I can only hope.
Well, I did see them without John Paul Jones years ago, and it was a good show. So I highly recommend it.
No, you mean without John Bonham?
Without John Bonham, but without John Paul Jones because they didn't invite him.
Oh,
So
that was when
Page Plant. Yeah.
And
I saw that show.
Yeah.
And
they had about 30 people on stage, backup singers and other.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable how many people they had compared to the original Led Zeppelin with just the four of them.
And I was talking about Stevie Ray Vaughan. I saw him years ago. Yeah.
When the Stones were at their best, it was them and a piano player. It wasn't 97 people supporting it. Just the rawness is what made them the Rolling Stones.
100%. But yeah, anyway, we were talking about that a little bit, and there's supposedly a bunch of young musicians called the Greystones on YouTube. If you want to check out, young guitarists like in their 15 or something like that. So yeah, if you're looking for,
I think they're about 10 to 14 years old.
Good for them.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
But we're talking about all things electric today.
Yeah, we are.
Which I had some discussions about with a guy today
in progress.
who thought that was what all the car sales were going to be moving forward. And he's jumping into the car business. I was like, well, you may want to dial that back a little bit. But I don't know. I don't know on the EV side. I mean, I know that in the US they're getting rid of the rebates. Is that correct, Larry?
Yeah. Obviously, Trump is less enamored of EVs than the Biden administration, so they're dialing them back. I know for a fact that people like Tony Thorstad took advantage of unbelievable incentives and got to enjoy a vehicle for just crazy, silly money, right, Tony? I mean, your payment was like fractional, it was almost nothing.
$190 a month and free charging.
Wow,
yeah, which is crazy. I believe, this is just my opinion, you may agree, disagree. The people that love EVs, love them. You can't get them off them. They're going to have them forever. The people that really like gas are going to deal with it. But obviously, listen, when I got into the business shortly after we became a Hyundai dealer, and nobody wanted a Hyundai. The reason a lot of people wound up in a Hyundai is we had very large rebates, and we were in a credit-challenged neighborhood, and we would use the rebates to get people into the car. Necessity is the mother of invention, as opposed to the mothers of invention, which is Frank Zappa. But I don't want to get back on the others. The point is, I think you'll see a slight dip, but I think the people that love EVs will continue to buy them. I just think that you'll also lose some people. Like Tony Thorstad may love his EV, but if his payment was $500 or $600 or $700, he might look at it askew. Correct, Tony, as much as you enjoy the vehicle?
Well, the truth is the payment's probably going to be that anyways, gas or EV. So now it comes back down to which one I really like. I think if I go to a gas car, I'm going to have a $500, $600, $700 payment. If I'm in an EV, I'm going to have that kind of payment. I do believe that the manufacturers, regardless of what the governments are going to do, are not going to quit making electric cars. I think they're going to figure them out. They're going to have you know, the, what are those batteries called? Solid state
Solid
batteries
state,
or
yep.
whatever.
Yep.
Yep, and I think they're gonna get to the day that they hit 500 miles on a single charge in 15 minutes, I think you'll see a mass adoption, as long as the pricing remains comparable to gas vehicles. But if I can charge this thing in 15 minutes and drive 500 miles, find a car on the road that can do that.
No, that's
Okay, what
great,
about-
but wait a minute, when that would conquer the two greatest problems, which is fear of range, anxiety, and how long it takes to charge, because I was just talking to somebody and they love their EV, but it took them 9 hours to charge it, and that's absurd.
Well, there was also a
Well,
post.
I agree with you.
There was
Yeah,
also
on a level 2, mine is gonna take 9 hours to charge.
Ooh.
So what do? I plug it in when I go to bed, I unplug it when I get up, and away we go.
Well, there was a post, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. I think it's a police department in, I think it's San Diego. They bought a Rivian pickup for like $150,000 or something crazy. And they're like, yeah, this is the first electric police car. And I was sitting there going, yeah, just imagine how many other police cars you could have bought for the same money. It was just kind of interesting. But to your point, Larry, and I know that you've seen some news around BYD kicking Tesla's ass all over the universe with cars. I think it's a combination of convenience, so it's charging infrastructure and charging time, but also sheer cost. And I've done a number of shows on EVs, and really the thing for the car dealers that they really got to focus on is selling used EVs. That's where the money is, 100%.
That's going to be a burgeoning market because of the huge amount of depreciation that'll come out once it's done. Wendy, I think you were starting to say something. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I actually interrupted you and I apologize, but since Tony had the mic, or since he was talking about his experience, I wondered, Tony, I don't believe you've yet fared one way or the other. You've not experienced the 43 below wind chill in the EV. What I'm concerned about is temperature extremes for myself in Arizona or for when I'm in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So I will say that, so I drive a BZ4X, a 2024 BZ4X, and supposedly 255 miles to a full charge. I've seen it go as high as 260. Last winter was the first full winter. Now it was pretty mild here comparatively. I think it got below zero maybe 10 days all winter. So pretty mild, but it went from 255 to struggling around 180. So that is truth. That is a pretty strong fear. I will say this, on 255 miles, I charge once a week. Now, I don't drive much. In fact, I'm sitting at an odometer right now of 12,160 miles, and I've had it for 17 months. So I don't even drive. I drive, 700 miles a month, which for many people, that's what they do. I mean, we're seeing 10,000 mile a year leases. So I think for a lot of people that live in metropolitan areas, I think most people are going to be fine with them. It's the initial, I think politics got in the way of it and got ahead of it. I'm not saying it's what everybody's going to do, but I do think politics got in the way of it.
Well, Tone, 2 points. One, you can't legislate morality. We found that out in the 20s with prohibition. We decided to tell people they couldn't drink.
Right.
The second thing is, we all know, we're all astute, perception is reality. And the reason people got so scared with the cold, man, I don't know if you heard this news up in Canada, but there was a real cold spell in Chicago a year ago, and all the cars that were electric froze. They were like big popsicles. So I think they're the kind of things that stick in people's heads. It's like a couple Teslas caught fire and the doors wouldn't work. I just think those fear factors stick in people's minds, even if they're not true, or they can be solved or worked around.
Well, I got two stories for you.
Larry,
I got two
Larry,
stories
I
for
really
you.
think that the arguments we hear today are the same arguments when the horseless carriage came out.
Mhm.
And
I was just thinking the
all
same
the
thing.
similar,
Yeah.
all the similar fears. I mean, our dealership's been family run and owned and operated for now, well, Baxter bought us, but in business for 120 years, right? And back when they first started, the stories that OD Smart, the founder, would tell was people with their gas cars, when they broke down on the highway or out in the country road, they just walked away from them and went back to town.
Yeah.
Hitchhiked on a horse back to town. And you would have thought, man, with stories like that, why would anybody buy one? And guess where we're at 100 years later? So we're still fresh in the game. You know, I can imagine the horse and carriage, the buggy guy, the guy on his horse, laughing at the guy next to him. Where are you going to fill that thing up with gas in the country? I could just park my horse by a grass and park him by the stream, and he can fill himself back up. And, you know, all the same complaints. Give this thing 50 years. I think all those fears will go away.
But you also got to harken back to the early days of the electric car, which was, by the way, at the turn of the last century.
In the 20s.
And those cars did exist. You still see them occasionally at car shows from the 1890s, early 1900s. And they actually were, you know, also battery powered. But the thing about cold, and I'll talk two stories about cold. I also lived in Vancouver, which has a very high EV adoption rate. But the funny thing about cold, when you look at markets like Edmonton that can get to negative 40 below Celsius, which, by the way, is so cold it's the same in Fahrenheit, they bought a whole bunch of these electric buses, and they do not work at that temperature. So then to add insult to injury, they thought they could put blankets on the batteries to make them warm enough to work. It still did not work. Like, that's not going to help, dude. So you gotta be cognizant of that. But I see that sometimes here in Calgary, which is much farther south, but still can get to negative 20 Celsius. You gotta bear that in mind with range, because I saw people last winter where they'd have it filled, to your point, in their garage. They drive downtown and then they lose more than half the range, and they couldn't drive it back because they'd be out of range. So yeah, bear that in mind.
Filling preheaters and battery heaters into their new models, so they have some, I don't know, technology to keep the battery above a particular temperature. In the new ones coming out in 26. So the technology is moving very, very quick.
Well, I think you'll solve that
I
problem.
mean, look at block heaters for regular ice vehicles, right?
Oh, yeah.
Block heaters that we needed years ago.
Still
in
do.
Wisconsin, you know.
Hey, we got, you
Go
guys,
ahead
if you
and
don't mind, I'd like to jump. It's our buddy Mandy's back after a little bit of an absence. Man, what are your thoughts on EVs and where they're going? I mean, Ian and I seem to believe that we're going to see a stronger market for used EVs. I think Tony's of a mind that once it equalizes, a lot of people are still going to stick with them. I agree with that. I just don't think the percentage is going to rise without the incentives. What are your thoughts, Mandy?
I think that this happened in Europe, and they had their incentives and they saw a steep dip once the incentives were gone. So I think we're going to see the same thing going into the last quarter of this year. I do think they're going to level off. I think that is the same thing with iPhone. You had a lot of early adopters. I think that those people really jumped in. They're on board and doing all those things. And now they have a lot of development to do before the average person is just going to go out and buy one. Like me, I'm a mom. I drive around with my kids. I'm rural. Like it would make no sense for me to ever even consider one. Like even a hybrid for the cost difference, because I know a lot of the manufacturers are leaning towards more of a mix between going with that hybrid instead of just all one way or the other. But it wouldn't make sense for me because hybrids are quite expensive compared to an ICE vehicle. So there's a lot of factors that need to be worked on in the next few years if they want to really try to get the average everyday user to get them. Like it just doesn't make sense here. Like in Nova Scotia, like we have some pretty crazy weather. It doesn't get that cold, but I can't see it. I just can't see for how far that we have to travel to go places. I could never trust it and the reliability. That's why people buy cars with warranty, especially like single moms. They'll buy cars with warranty because they want to know they have that peace of mind that when they drive somewhere that their car is going to work, it's going to be reliable, and they're not going to get on the side of the road stuck with their kids. Like that's real life. And so I think it's going to take a lot to push those average buyers to keep coming back to the market with it.
Makes sense. Jeff, what do you think?
Well, interestingly, I had looked at the Cadillac Lyric before they released it, and I thought, man, what a cool car. Although I'm not an American builder fan, OEM fan, I think the offshore vehicles are better, but couldn't convince myself, and this was really for my wife, but couldn't convince myself that EV, and this was over a year ago, but that really fit into our profile. So we ended up buying a hybrid because, you know, it's the fear, even my wife, and she's not a car person, but, you know, thinking, oh, what happens when I get stuck? It's like, would I get stuck? It automatically was in her head that she was going to have a dead battery, because we've all had dead batteries, right? So,
Yeah.
you know, I think that's probably the biggest fear that people have to overcome. And we're actually building some tools now to help with EVs, because I think there's a lot of inventory out there still. And Tony, you might know better, but, and Ian, you might too, but I think there's a lot of dealers are sitting on a lot of inventory that's not going to move in the next 30 days.
Well, if you want a cyber truck, there's a few.
No, thanks.
Well, I'll tell you, Jeff, that we're not heavy in them. We're able to move them at I guess at a Ford rate or maybe a Chrysler rate as opposed to a Toyota rate in terms of the sales rate. One of the things that, as you were talking about Cadillac electric, Jeff, I was thinking about the Toyota warranty, and Mandy kind of touched on not warranty but reliability on the electrics. Did you guys know, and I just looked up Cadillac to see what their electric warranty is. It's a 70,000 mile electric warranty. Let me just take a quick 6 year, 70,000 mile powertrain warranty on an electric Cadillac. On the Toyota, the one I'm driving right now, I have an 8 year, 100,000 mile electric, the hybrid system or the electric system, and the battery is 10 year, 150,000 mile warranty. Now, tell me, when you think about that, how much confidence Toyota has in their product to be able to put that type of warranty on the hybrid or the electric, and then that additional 10 year 150 on the battery. That's pretty darn strong. You're not going to find an ICE vehicle with that kind of warranty out of the gate.
By the way, I read that they just came out, I'm not making this up, with a $395,000 Cadillac that's electric that looked gorgeous. Usually, you know, the writers like to beat up Cadillac, but the guy said it's just the most unbelievable ride he's ever been in. It was kind of interesting. And we didn't hear yet from my boy Russell Hill. Russell.
Oh, hey,
And
so
how you feeling, man? I know you went through a couple little things with the illness. You feeling okay, my friend?
I'm on my game. Yes. So I was listening to what everybody said, and one comment, what's his name? Steve Greenfield at a SodaCon. He was talking about a percentage of the market. I mean, EVs aren't going away; they're going to evolve. You know, so whatever the case may be. And what he was talking about in the very near future, you know how you have these. He said you won't be sticking anything in. They'll have these super fast chargers. You just drive up over the puck, and it'll charge it. I thought it was pretty interesting. But here's my concern. I was going back to, I remember I talked about this, although it was 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, about a journalist that got lambasted in Norway. They're much more evolved than we are on the electric vehicle side. 38% of the population, probably more now, who knows, is EV. The challenge with them is that it was basically $1 per kilowatt hour. I mean, that's more than it costs for gasoline. We have an infrastructure problem with electricity with these 3 power grids, and it's like then you got to race for the immense amount of power that these data or AI places that are being built consume. And then you got the EV side of thing. Well, they already have brownouts and blackouts all over the damn place. Our power grid cannot handle, unless something changes fast. It could probably accelerate, but until the infrastructure is in place, I'm less resistant to an EV today than I was 2 years ago, just because I know more. I know about the extreme colds and the extreme heats and level 1, 2, and 3 and what that represents and means. Of course, where I'm at, and you think about it, what is the average person only drives 60 miles a day anyway? I mean, so it's not that big a shock, but there is, you know, here where I'm at, I mean, they're not everywhere. And half the time, it costs money to charge, and half the time it shows they're available and they're down, charging stations. But you know, I'm open more today than ever, and wouldn't even mind having one. But I got to tell you, man, I have a 56 volt battery. It's got like 26 little batteries in it for my ergo blower, leaf blower. So this is what scares me. I'm sitting in my man cave, and I am charging. I got one backup, right? And so I put one on the charger. It's been on there for probably 45 minutes. I'm used to a particular noise it makes humming as it's being charged, etc. And I'm doing something. You're gonna have to edit this out. I was smoking a cigarette. Okay, I know, right? Okay, so I was smoking a cigarette, and I heard this, right, and then I didn't hear that hum anymore, and I heard a little teeny pop. And I looked over because it's arm's length away charging, and on my desk, and I look over, and I don't see any lights on like I normally do. Then I hear another little pop, and then I saw a little spark. I freaked out. I opened my back door, which is right next to where the charger was, and I got scared to death. And I just flung that thing out there, and it started on fire and popping and shooting shit everywhere. I got it on film right outside my back door on my patio. And I mean, that scared the hell out of me. I used a whole fire extinguisher and couldn't put it out.
Wow.
And finally, after about 15 minutes, and I got 6 minutes of it recorded, I put water on it, and I guess it was at the end or something, but I mean, I didn't have safety goggles. I mean, it was scary. It was really scary. That's what scares me about batteries.
Teslas burn underwater too.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't put them out.
Did everybody notice how Russell started off saying he would consider, and then came up with the worst car story of all time? It's kind of like people say, I don't mean to offend you, and then they offend you.
Right.
Larkin, I don't mean to lead you in with being offended, but what are your thoughts, my friend?
I gotta follow Russell, man. I mean, there's no way.
Well, the only reason, wait a minute, you have your parallel. The only reason Gary Silman isn't here is because Mike set him on fire, another AI.
Well, speaking of which, he is on his 36th anniversary dinner, so that's why he made sure that he called me and he said, I apologize, I can't make it. I'm like, don't worry about it.
I celebrated my 36 recently, but it was with 3 wives.
That's allowed.
Well, it's divided up in 3s. Good things happen in 3s.
Also, we're in the car business. You took 3 leases that were closed end, and the last one was an open end. We get it.
I agree with Tony. Stay the politics out of here. It's a free economy.
That's right.
Let the market decide.
Yes.
I mean, we were tracking big data back in 2017, and they decided, hey, you know what? It's a free economy, and if you want to track people landing on your website, they've raised their hand, and you can follow them with ads. That's fine. But they were considering that would be illegal. Look, they have done illegal is the emails. If you send somebody, hey, I want to unsubscribe. Well, that's been pretty much ignored. How many have over 1,000 emails they haven't read in their inbox? Raise your hand. Okay, that law has been kind of ignored.
I have
Right.
1.2 million emails I have not read since
Wow.
the beginning of the year.
Well, sit down, fella, because it's gonna be you can have an AI program get rid of them. But
Hey, by the way, David is joining us. Recently, I started to take, because I've had a little more time at night because I've been out of town and blah, blah, blah. Anybody that hasn't checked out David's posts should check him out. He doesn't waste a whole lot of time with nonsense. His stuff is to the point. Russell, he takes a little bit of an edge like you and I take, where he cuts through the hooey and isn't afraid to call BS on something. But
No, I gotta tell you, with all this stuff,
check them the heck out.
yeah, I'm having an ADHD moment, so I need to say something. I was just thinking about that, and I was gonna reach out to him, because I follow him. And I mean, if there, I take really most people with a grain of salt, but I don't David. He's got a pretty special place in my mind and my heart, when with his level of passion. But the guy knows his shit, man. I mean, he knows his shit, and he'll call you on your shit real quick if you got some shit out there. And anyway,
Well,
I don't know if you heard that or not.
If you were paying attention, that was one endorsement view and 3 shits, which means Rhonda just got her first jar filled.
Rhonda, I think Russell just bought Thanksgiving dinner for us.
Yeah. Well,
I don't celebrate
for my next
Thanksgiving.
entry in the $1.3 billion lottery.
Yeah, we gotta play that.
Yeah. Go ahead, David.
David. Tony Thorstad claims to win the $1.4 billion and bribe Robert Plant to get back with
You could probably arrange your own show for that kind of money, I think.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, really. Wow. Hey, you know, every time I go check my lottery tickets, I swipe it under there, and all they do is make me feel bad about myself. They insult me and they say I'm not a winner.
Guys, listen, David is emerged on screen instead of just listening, and he has something profound to say. David, please.
I was just saying the only reason you say nice things about me because you know I love fixed ops.
Oh, no, that's really not. I mean, you.
I know, I'm just messing with you.
Okay, all right. I love you, man.
You know I love you anyway. It has nothing to do with fixed ops, actually. But no, I appreciate everybody, and I appreciate the kind words. I try not to use AI as much, except for looking up things. But I am not the best speller, so I will take what I write out and what I learn and what I listen from Clubhouse a lot of times, and what I listen and read from you guys, all that are here. I'll read what Michael says, you know, and things. I'll listen to what all of you guys say, and I will play back lethal sales when I can't make it, and listen to the topics. And a lot of times, you know, there's like 10, 15, 20 topics that I think we're all talking about in the car business, right? And a lot of times we're just talking about how are we going to adopt and evolve with AI? How are we going to adopt and get dealers to do this? How are we going to help customers more? And, you know, I do have a little bit of a BS factor. But I tell you what, and I don't know if she's on the call, but I've learned that April Simons has a BS factor with a lot of things with people.
Oh, yeah.
And I've learned that, you know, Larry does too. You know,
But the difference is April Simmons is out there, and I'm so shy and reserved I would never voice my opinion. And if you believe that, I really am.
I was gonna say, I've heard you say some things that are just goes against the status quo, and I think that there's some wonderful people and vendors here that I respect and know and follow, and there's a level of trust. And I'm not just blowing smoke up you guys, okay? I'm telling you the truth is that so many times when I have a dealer hat on and people have been approaching me lately and you really start asking them questions, they don't, and they can't really substantiate an ROI. I can't vet the people even. So I sit there and wonder how difficult it is a task right now for a dealership to kind of go through the sea of vendors that are preaching AI. What can they truly find out that's a fact? Because I think that everything we read right now in these large language models and people are using the search engines is just as good as garbage in, garbage out. It's just a matter of the data everybody's putting into it. And I'm really examining a lot of different, like 5 different software platforms and large language model platforms for one company. And I started researching their stuff and everybody else's stuff. And I'm like, you know, 90% of the stuff I'm seeing out there is garbage. And it just comes down to trusting people, seeing the results, knowing what they do. I mean, there's some training stuff in real life cases and scenarios that you see that Larry posts. You see some really active pages and things and principles that all of you post. And, you know, I follow Russell and I've been following Russell for years and things. And it's just, I don't understand, I guess, from my standpoint, why every dealer isn't on Clubhouse and listening to you guys talk.
Because, David, can I answer that real quick, in my humble opinion?
Sure.
It's because dealers are used to garbage. How many dealers have bought an exclusive list that 30 other dealers bought exclusively? When we were on Wendy's show, earlier, I remarked to you that it's not a shock to me that people don't adopt AI, because we still have salespeople not putting the information into the CRM, even though it's an incredibly effective way for them to track, their managers to track, and BDC to track. Russell and everybody on this program is tired of hearing me say that service walk should be mandatory. Maybe we have less leakage out if people were familiar with the time of delivery, that we have a damn service department.
Yeah.
So
And they sell tires.
Go ahead,
Listen,
Russell.
I show up to all these rooms in the morning. I spend a minimum 3+ hours on human side of AI, the Clubhouse thing, reading LinkedIn, reading people's stuff. And I wonder the same thing, but not really, okay? Because I think of, if the branches are bare, au contraire, I just don't go there. 95% of the population get their information from the same 95% of the population that has what they have or less than what they have, and they wonder why the hell they don't have any more. If you want more, hang out with the 5%ers. You all are the 5%ers. That's who I choose to hang out with. That's where I get my information. That's where I get my networking from. That's where I build my relationships. And I know in some of these rooms we're talking about things, but there's new people popping in that are hearing it for the first time. We got to grab their attention and pull them in, because they want something more in their life. And they stepped into this because somebody prompted them, hey, if you want to make some changes in your life, you need to take control of it. And you need to associate with people that have things that you want in your life, not that have what you have, because you're not going to get anywhere that way, right? That's what you guys are to me.
Yeah, and also, I mean,
And before we jump in,
April's in, so
April Simmons making a rare
Oh,
reappearance.
April. Hello, April.
It's so good to see you.
Norm, good to see you guys as well. When the time zone changes again, you'll see me more often. Once you guys are not on Pacific anymore and we're back to like normal time zone stuff, then you'll be, I'll be able to jump on.
That's coming soon, isn't it, April?
I think so. See, we don't change here, so this is where it gets jacked up. So I actually, as weird as it is, I change more because I don't change. That's probably the craziest thing.
Well, you're kind of the expert on the AI.
Where we think EVs are going.
Yeah.
We've kind of decided, I think mutually, that we're going to see a stronger used EV market because of the depreciation, that we might see a slight downtick because the incentives are going away. And then that kind of branched out into the lack of people grasping AI, according to my good and great friend David Rosick. So what are your thoughts on everything, April? We have ADHD here. We never stay on one topic.
Well, it's true. I'll jump in on the EV real quick and just give my thoughts. My thoughts are this. The manufacturers have already built a plethora of them. The manufacturers have no choice but to sell the plethora of EVs that they have already built or are in the process of building. So step number one, they're going to have to put out enough rebates to offset the credits that are going away in order to get off of those. And the dealers are going to have to take it in the shorts like we have been. So we're just still going to be taking it in the shorts until they get to the other side of this thing. And then my thought is the real supply and demand can land where it needs to land, which is they're going to still exist. We're still going to have some. We'll have some people that will continue to adopt them. I think the leasing way to go is the way to go on them, because a lot of people with a small payment can't afford to have it as a secondary vehicle, right? Like their work commuter car. But ultimately, that's where I see that piece headed. My biggest struggle today, if I'm being real frank, and I think it goes to the heart of where so many of these issues and so many of these other conversations are stemming from, we have a real epidemic and a real problem with people just don't want to work. I mean, the reality of it is that, like Russell was just saying, the 5%ers, that's about all there is of humans who want to work nowadays. So the real issue is, how do the 5%ers get the 95% to care enough to actually put the person in the CRM, to care enough to want to learn something new, to want to learn a new way of doing things, or to learn a new tool or a new task or a new anything. I just feel like we have a real big problem with mediocrity, and people are okay with being mediocre. And that's where I see at the core of so many of these conversations is really, it's not the 5%ers, because the 5%ers are always going to be the 5%ers. It's just the 95% seem to be much more difficult to get to have some gas in them. That's give a shit for my friends who like to charge me in the swear jar.
April, it's the Einstein quote I love so much. They asked him the difference between genius and stupidity, and he says genius has its limits. Stupidity is boundless. You can't fix it. And what's so scary is when I'm stupid, it drives me crazy. I read, I learn, I ask questions. I never understood people that were happy and proud to be ignorant. And I'm so glad you're here. It's so nice to see you. But when you jumped in, Mandy was starting to say something, and it's just
Perfect, rock and roll. You got my whole year summed up
and
in 30
Mandy,
seconds.
she said plethora twice. Just so you know, that's not some kind of dessert brand from the United States. Just means a lot.
Thank you. I needed that clarification. I just wanted to jump in with what David was saying about AI. I know that wasn't the topic at hand for the chat tonight, but I do invite him to join. We have a webinar that's happening. Anyone can come join. It's being hosted by Sandra, and it's happening on the 25th. And what she's talking about is the compliance component of AI in dealerships. So it's the back end that the dealerships need to be thinking about when they bring in AI and things that you can consider.
It's important. I'm not kidding now. Not only should you get David in, because he's so smart, invite, and I'll help you invite him, Tom Klein. I don't know a better compliance guy than Tom, and on top of that, he's
the octopus.
If you had David with AI and Tom Klein with compliance, I think you turbocharge that. Everybody agree? And how are you going to go wrong with that tip?
Yeah, Hayden for a trifecta. Tim Hayden for a trifecta.
Yeah, Tim Hayden's really,
Tim Hayden will be unavailable after Luka Doncic was traded from the Mavs and Michael Parsons. He is in Dallas shock. Why Russell got in his chair? He spontaneously combusted when he realized the Cowboys are playing my Eagles on Thursday.
That's opening night.
Okay, all together now. Happy anniversary to Gary.
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary. Happy anniversary.
Hey, let the cat out of the bag. Let the cat out of the bag. I'll claim it.
That's not what you said, Larkin. You said his wife made it to heaven ahead of Mother Teresa. All she had to deal with was lepers. His wife had to deal with Gary for 36 years. You said it, Mike. No, I would never start.
Hey,
Rosa, back me up.
Let me tell you.
Get ready that swear jar again.
She's a saint. She's a saint for putting up with me over 36 years.
David, his wife is Jewish. We now have Jewish saints. After the Bush Jenner thing, we've loosened up all rules and regulations.
Good evening, everybody. I didn't want to miss out on talking about EVs.
Yeah. What's your thought? Incentives, not incentives, sell more, sell less. What do people think?
You know, I've lived it. I was a knucklehead, and I went out over COVID when my lease ended on my Xfinity. I went out and I said, okay, I'm going to get a Ford Mach-E.
Oh, okay.
So I got the Ford Mach-E, and because there was no other cars, and this one only has a 200-mile range. So I've been stranded on the side of the road in New Hampshire. I've been stranded in Vermont, and they failed to let the consumer know that when you're in a cold weather environment, you lose 35% of the charge in the winter. And I would see my charge, it said I had 220. I pull out and I'm driving down the road. Next thing I know, I'm at like 165. I'm like, oh shit. So I was driving up to Vermont, Maine, and New Hampshire, and you can't find charging stations. The dealers won't upgrade. They still have the 110, and they were complaining about the investment that they needed to make. And, now I'm almost in an equitable position. I have 5 payments left on one of the balloon notes, but it's got a $22,000 trade-in. Car's worth $20,000, so I'm already $2,000 upside down. And so I called my friends over at the local Ford dealers, and I said, well, can I get a $7,500 credit? Well, we don't know which ones are got credit, which one doesn't. Well, how about the big beautiful bill? So if you buy a vehicle that's 100% American, you get a $10,000 tax write-off. Okay, which car is 100%? I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? I'm calling you. You're a Ford dealer. I went on ChatGPT and I said, what's the best incentive right now to get out of my lease or get out of my, I'm in the business and I go to my dealers and they're confused and they're not on top of their game and they're not, and it's like, oh my God, we're in Connecticut. We get like 1 month that's really, really cold. Okay. EVs for some people make sense if you got a garage and you can charge it, but for the rest of the world, it doesn't make much sense. And I was trying to go out 4 years ago and saying I had to learn how to use EV. I had to get apps on my phone. I didn't know anything about it, but I had to learn because how could I help my dealers sell these things if I don't know anything about it? And you had to learn networks of charging stations that had high-speed chargers and other ones that didn't. And it was just unfortunately shoved down our throats. Now, Tony says wonderful things because Toyota is always ahead of everybody else. Toyota's not complaining. They're selling hybrids. Their Lexus hybrids are wonderful. It's just because everybody else couldn't figure it out and they were trying to appease the government, trying to do something that they couldn't do. It was a no-win situation.
So EV again, or what are you doing next time?
You know what? I wanted, if they could find me a hybrid where I could get the $7,500 tax break that was manufactured in the United States and I could get my 10 grand of tax write-off, I'll take that. Very easy. So I'll plug it back in on a hybrid. But I want gas, not 100%, not 100% electric. I would not do it again. It's too.
Gary, you just triggered me.
I did.
You just gave me an idea. If anybody has an answer to it. So my car, I got a buyout right now of about 21 grand. I got like 6 payments left, 5 payments left, whatever.
I'm in the same situation.
Right. So I'm wondering if I do a pass through at the dealership, buy this thing out, and then buy it back as a used vehicle, if I can get that EV credit by the end of the month. Therefore, I end up paying like 16 grand for this thing.
Look at you working the system, man.
Well, when I first,
can you imagine? This is a $52,000 EV with 12,000 miles on it. If I can buy this thing for 16 grand, I don't give a shit if it only gets 250 miles. I can afford to buy a second car to get the extra mileage.
But does that qualify? Would that qualify?
People better start paying up. That's all I can tell you.
There you go, Gary. Thank you.
Would that qualify though?
Hey, Tony, I hope you do it.
Hey, Tony T, you've got to grab David's calculator.
Rhonda, we're giving you an alternative in case you don't win the lottery. We're making you rich off your swear jar.
Tony, my son made
It's Russell's fault.
my son works for a Toyota dealership, and the one he worked for had a very great program where you could lease any car you want for $300 a month, pretty much. And anyway, he went over to CarMax, and they wrote him a check for his Camry while it was still under lease. He made money on it, paid off his lease, and made money on it. So with that kind of thing, you could probably too.
Well, this was the first time in our history then we saw people were buying out their leases, and because they were in equitable positions. I mean, I had a Honda Odyssey. We had leased it, and the residual was like 19 grand. I was getting calls from rental companies wanting to pay 30 grand for that vehicle. And you know, I mean, it was wild, but you had no control over it as a dealer. It was just like, yeah, it was craziness.
So do you think that you're going to be able to? Is the Ford dealer at least working on a solution for you, or no?
Oh yeah. The finance manager, I've known him. His name's Jason. I mean, we've been buddies for a long time. But Jason has to say, he said, look, Gary, I don't put numbers on the car. So you got to bring the car and you got to go see the GM, because let him give you the bad news. And I'm like, he says, I'm just using rough numbers, you know. So it's like, you know, if the GM's going to put 17 on my car, I guess I'm not trading it in. You know, if he gives me 22 and he gets me a good, you know, program, sure, I'm out. I'll move on. You know, I'm ready to move on. But if I'm also ready that I can pay 5 more payments and give it back, and then I'm not controlled by Ford Credit. I can go anywhere I want. So, but right now, it has some advantages. I can get the tax break. You know, if I trade it in for 22, I save taxes. You know, and if I can get the EV credit on one of these hybrids, and then if I can get $10,000 a write-off over the next few years, that's a win. You know, at the end of the day. So I would on that behalf, but I would probably do it with Ford, because I'll get a Charger in my garage with Ford and just stick with them. I got no problem staying with Ford. They got plenty of different options.
So what are you thinking on leasing? Like if you're someone who's looking at an EV and you're not sure, just like you weren't the first time, you know, what do you think on leasing? Do you think that's a way for dealers to push the needle on the EVs they got? Do you think that they should be pushing leasing heavy on EVs?
I think we're going to see the manufacturer having to do something, and they'll influence it with their rebates. As we go into the fall season, they've got too much stagnant inventory, way too much stagnant inventory, and they'll be putting everybody in EVs with some $2,000 down, you know, rebates, or they got to get rid of them.
Yeah, I'm just curious by brand. I know. If you want to Dodge, what is it, Charger or Challenger EV, they're blowing those things out.
Well, let's not even talk about Stellantis as a manufacturer. I mean, like, come on, what do they have left?
So they're saying the U.S. EV market share was about 7.4%.
And they're claiming it's going up to 18%. I think that's in
And Ian, I just looked up and it said in 2024, nearly half of all EV sales were leases.
Yeah, General Motors has 11%.
Well, they came out, they retooled, and they got that. They've got that smaller, like SUV that's electric, that's somewhere in the 30 grand, and that one seems to be getting traction. I see that one around. There's whatever the Chevy EV is. It's about a 30 grand mid-sized car.
Well, also though, you got to remember when you look at GM that Honda's mixed into that, because they did that Honda Prologue with GM, right? So it's not quite accurate.
Well, I mean, look at what Hyundai and Kia are crushing it with their EVs. They are doing very well.
Well, in 2026, Toyota will have 3 EVs, which that alone will help bump the EV percentage up because people trust Toyota.
Can we talk about crushing it though? Crushing it by what standard? Because of the volume of them.
You mean you don't have any?
Because we have Kia and Hyundai, and you're right. Like as far as a volume standpoint goes, we're selling them, but I don't know that I would call it selling them. The loss to the dealership for every single EV we roll is significant.
We only talk wholesale on this one.
Really, that's
We'll just joke in
I'm
the
just-
car.
but I'm just saying,
We lose
like,
money on cars, but we make it up on volume.
Yeah, not in this case, we don't. That's not in this case. Anyway, sorry to pipe in. I just
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
like we get excited about when we see these numbers on a statement that says, well, look at how many units they rolled. But what we're not looking at is how much dollars it's costing the dealership. And now that we have market compression on top of that, it's causing a real financial situation to have to actually get these things out of here. At least let me give my disclaimer, from my backyard and where I sit.
So would you say though, April, if you had to lease all of them to get rid of them so you didn't have the inventory, that would be a win? That would be crushing it in your opinion? Because they're saying the numbers are something like 80% lease.
That's because they're literally, you can get $100 car payments for these things on a lease. Because you have to think about this when they do this lease in this way. They've got these massive rebates they're putting on the lease. So they have lease cash, plus you get the tax credit, right? So you get all these things lined up. You have some of these you can do for like literally $100 payments. But here's my real question: every one we lease, are we just kicking the can? Because remember back when we had before Cash for Clunkers in 2008 and all that stuff, back before then when we had the gas prices go way up, and people were bringing their lease, they're off in those leases, and GM, all these people were eating $20,000, $30,000 on these things because the market, what the market was at the time that the lease came off. I have a real fear on, if we do a lot of leasing today, are we just kicking the can, and is this thing going to come back and just bite those manufacturers very hard in 2 and 3 years from now? That's to me the bigger question.
Well, are the residuals for these leases in line based on a 70% depreciation? I mean, that's the big question. Like, are they leasing them? So. Are they leasing them cheap just to move?
Based on today. You have somebody that's driving one who's telling you he's upside down. Like,
but April, you weren't here earlier when Russell was saying he's already figured out how to burn every lease car.
Not quite, but I was sharing my recent experience with a battery that blew up and while I was in the garage. It would have burnt my house down if I did not act quickly. Thank you, Lord.
Well, that's why right in the owner's manuals, when they do the delivery, they tell you, get the charger in your garage, but don't charge it in the garage because you might burn your house down. I mean,
exactly.
Did you see that disclaimer?
No, because and then they tell you to reference the owner's manual, but only 2% of people even reference it. 6% open it, and the rest don't even look at it. So
you'll find things for every single program where there's 97 pages and we just punch in, and then we're offended when they have control over certain aspects.
You just need to know how to program your radio stations and write.
I'm doing my owner's manual. It tells me to keep the smart kid in my trunk.
So, question: if for the EV owners, is your home insurance higher?
That's a good question.
I know that on my policy, I think I was bumped because I have an EV. So when they rated it, it was a little bit higher because of the electric. I would imagine
They never asked. They never asked me what I was driving when I did my homeowners.
Interesting.
Do you have your homeowners with your car insurance in the same company?
Nope.
There it is.
So there it is.
Not doing that. Not buying that.
So as long as you don't pull a Russell and almost burn your house down, then you'll be okay. But at that point, then they might turn around and drop you.
April, you've done it again. You called it pull a Russell.
Well,
You've done it again.
If you're leasing a Silverado EV, your 24-month lease residual is 90%. Holy crap!
wow, that's unbelievable.
That's aggressive.
So I was gonna lease.
Holy crap!
Yeah, I was gonna lease a Dodge Challenger from a client of mine, or a Dodge Charger from a client of mine, and it was $199 a month for 2 years, 10,000 miles, no money down. nothing out of pocket, and he had me at $199 a month.
Wow.
And I'm just like, oh, I got to get this car. He goes, Dave, I refuse to sell you that car. He goes, you're a friend of mine. I cannot sell you this car. He goes, and I said, yeah, but for $200, I'll just drive it around town. I don't care. It'll just save me gas. And he said, no, I won't sell it to you. So I literally left there going, I've never had a dealer told me they will not sell me the car. He goes, I'm going to dealer trade it.
What about the Lincoln MKX?
They have a
Lincoln MKX,
they have a lease on
or
that?
whatever that was. The only way anyone was buying it is leasing it. And the residual, no dealer wants that vehicle back in their possession. So, I mean, I don't know what they're doing with those, because those, they when they get turned in, they run to the auction and they lose in the auction on those cars. They don't bring any money. And so the residual
is high.
It's kicking the can, because you're putting that car on the road for 3 years, and then when you come back in 4 years, now you gotta depreciate it because it doesn't have the value. No one's gonna buy it.
I actually bought one, an off-lease one, and we got a pretty fair trade. I mean, we bought it.
Once it's depreciated, it's a nice vehicle if you buy it for the right money. But from the lease to that, they lose. They're losing heavy.
Yeah, there was a time when there was a very vibrant used car lease market. And every one of those damn banks went out of business.
General Electric.
Exactly why we're talking about, because when the residuals came back, they got killed.
We had a guy in our market. Guy's name was Harvey Lipman, and Harvey was leasing 8 cylinders, the big gas guzzlers. And then when the gas crisis came, nobody wanted those, and he had fixed residuals. He lost everything, and that's the lessons that nobody wants to talk about.
But
the lessons we talk about all the time. You got to buy cars at the right money that you can sell affordable, and
don't say nobody wants to talk about it. April Simmons has a new program called the Plethora Podcast, where she's going to explain about kicking the can. Do I have that right, April?
Pretty close.
Well, here's some high residuals. Cars to avoid leasing, I guess. 2025 Toyota Tacoma SR5, 77% residual, highest of any model. Other high models: Kia Telluride, 71.5%. Toyota Land Cruiser, 71%. 4Runner, 71%.
Those are correct.
Those are all low residual.
Those are all on the money.
Every one of those will sell
Every one
more
of those
than
will sell.
everyone will sell.
On the money.
Hyundai Iconic 9, 67%.
Last.
Kia EV9, 65.7%. Porsche 911 Carrera, 71.2%.
But it was always, Ian, the Euros always had much better residuals. So you could, in the Mercedes and all those, but
BMW isn't even on the list.
They usually have very good residuals in Mercedes and those.
I'm curious now.
They don't.
I mean, BMW
They used to.
BMW used to.
Back in my youth.
In your youth.
Back in the day, in my youth, when we used to have Barco leasing, and then if you wanted to add another, $5,000, some reason it had alloy wheels and a 8-track cassette.
And a Lando.
No. It would be an 8-track or a cassette.
No,
it was 2 separate things. The 8-track had nice fidelity because the tape was wider, but in the middle of your song it stopped, and the cassette was smaller, but every damn one of them it unwound. Remember, Russ? We had to get in there with a pen.
With a pencil. Yeah.
And unwind it.
Yeah, BMW 3 Series and 5 Series today is 56% for a 3 Series. And for
a 3-year or 2-year?
That's a 36-month, 3-year.
That's a loser. That's why they can't get rid of it.
It's closer to reality, though.
But if you go to the higher end trim, they're higher at 57%, like the M Sport and stuff.
A low end trim, the lowest trim model in every manufacturer is going to have the highest residual. by a point or two.
But they used to be like
Number one
70%.
car is the Honda Civic LX. Honda Civic LX will have the highest residual amongst all cars, and it's the basic Honda Civic. So the lower the trim, the higher the residual value. The stuff with all the shit, excuse my language, that they don't have good residual values.
Well, don't bother
Russell,
Ronnie.
you made me do it.
Wearing leather
It's your fault,
furniture
Russell.
after the
You
show.
need to get Rhonda a bell. Ding ding.
You are correct. Civic Sport gasoline 66%. So it's higher than a
Yeah,
Beamer.
In the '90s, I was a lease manager for Gordy Boucher. I leased more Lincoln Mercury's in Wisconsin than anybody. I freaking knew everybody's lease programs, and it hasn't changed one bit.
Well, but
It's always the base level cars that have the highest.
But the Hybrid Sport, which is their top model in the hybrid, is 75.5% residual value. Honda Civic Sport Hybrid.
Is my friend out there, Eddie, in service? Is he out there on any of those?
Eddie Campbell.
Eddie Campbell? Is he out there?
Oh, is he on the
Say
show?
hello.
Oh, is he there? I got somebody.
No. Remember, he's made comments a couple times. I guess you had streamed
No.
2 or 3 different places.
I got Robert Johnson. Robert Johnson commented, and Abdul said hello.
Hey, just so you know, for anybody that doesn't know, I've been all over this country. I've met a zillion.
No,
GMs.
Eddie, no.
I have never met a
Yeah.
nicer GM than Eddie.
Yeah.
Campbell.
That guy is, and when you talk about moving tires, he's probably the #1 CDJR tire franchise, and probably the go-to for all franchises on somebody who knows what the heck they're doing with tires. I'm telling you what, he's the pro.
Russell, but he made the transition to GM, and he's just as successful as a GM.
Yep.
It was seamless with this guy. His
Yep.
attitude is perfect. Love that guy. Hey, guys, it's 8:01.
We're out of time.
Thank you all enough. It was so good to see our regulars. It was so good to see April and David.
Mandy.
Guys, please don't be strangers. We love you. We love your input. And again, April, I'll get you hooked up with Tom Klein between him and David, Tim Hayden. And hey, you got Jeff Shearer's no slouch.
That was
You'll have
Mandy.
an amazing.
Mandy. That was Mandy.
That was Mandy.
I can't tell good looking women apart. It's part of my old age problem.
Okay, well, y'all keep coming back. It works if you work it. Well, that sounds familiar somewhere, doesn't it?
Everybody stay healthy. We'll see you next Wednesday, and thank you all so much.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna win the $1.3 billion Powerball.
Hope you do.
On.
I will have a LinkedIn ad for a new hostess if that happens.
I'll split it with